Hello everyone and welcome back to another review on my channel, this time for Ys 9 Monstrum Nox, developed by the long-standing JRPG studio Nihon Falcom and published in North America by NIS America, which also translated the game. As some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of the Ys series, and it may well be my favorite JRPG series out there. So with that being said, even though I completed a fair share of Ys games, and you can attest to that in my channel, make sure you check out my impressions videos for other Ys games. I still have a few games left to beat in the series, more specifically the modern Ys games, based on the new 3D engine, of which I only beat, I believe, Ys Memories of Celceta on the PlayStation Vita. So my original plan was to play Ys 7 and then Ys 8 before getting to this game, Ys 9. But I figured since it was a 2021 release, you know, the hype got to me, plus I wanted to give this game a fair chance to make it to my top games of 2021 video and list. And sure enough, it made its way up to my, I believe, number 6 spot. So I'm glad I played this game when I did. And feel free to check, by the way, my video of my top games of 2021, which is up on my channel. And I talk a little bit about Ys 9 in there as well. But as far as the story in this game, as usual, I'm going to start by talking about the story. But I'm not going to spoil the story, but rather just give a quick summary and my thoughts on it. So the game starts with the series protagonist Adol Kristen once again exploring and set on an adventure with his longtime buddy Dogi. They arrive at the city of Balduk, I believe it's pronounced, which is the home of a renowned prison that used to be some sort of a legendary fortress, way back in the past. It is here at the gates of the city where Adol and Dogi are detained by authorities, and Adol is sent to the Balduk prison where he plans his escape. The escape sequence early in the game serves as a sort of tutorial, and while Adol manages to escape, he crosses paths with a mysterious woman named Aprilis, who uses a gun to shoot some sort of magical spell into Adol, which turns him into a monstrum, which is basically he now possesses supernatural abilities that he can use during combat and during exploration to his advantage. After you manage to escape the prison, you learn that there are other monstrums within the city with different supernatural abilities, just like you have. And but even though that sounds like a positive, not all is well though, because even though Adol and the other monstrum characters have gained abilities, they also become part of the monstrum curse, if you will, which devoids monstrums from leaving the city, and worse, forces them to defend parts of the city against monsters. If the monsters manage to break through, they can break through the some sort of parallel world, and then break through into the real world, and they will basically destroy the city of Balduk. So these sections are basically set in, like I said, some sort of parallel world, and only happen every so often. So the monstrums are tasked to work together to avoid the monsters from destroying these giant artifacts. Truthfully, you don't know much at the start of the game in terms of what are the monstrums, what is the meaning of their curse, why can't they leave the city, who is this mysterious lady, called Aprilis, that interacts and grants them the monstrum powers, etc. So, there are many unknowns that are slowly revealed as the game progresses. Unfortunately, I felt like the developments in the story are on the slow side, and you will have to play quite a bit of the game to start seeing some interesting developments, since the earlier parts of the game deal with expanding the story of the city of Balduk, and more specifically the individual story of the other monstrums that are with you in your journey. As you can probably guess, the other monstrums slowly become available as party members as you play the game, and you progressively unlock their stories, which is kind of neat. The plot definitely thickens towards the end of the game, and I have to say that the story gains in terms of complexity, which for me It's on the strange side considering most of the Ys games I've played to date remain on the simpler story development side of things. So with that being said, the story is enjoyable, and once you put all the puzzle pieces together, it has some very interesting and weird tones to it. I also suggest completing as many side quests as possible during your journey, because for the most part they are on the shorter side and they help a bit with the world building of the Balduc setting of the game. Now, in terms of graphics, this is where the game let me down, I guess I can say big time. Now, I completely understand that despite being a traditional and long-standing studio, Nihon Falcom is a small shop when compared to other Japanese developers like Capcom or Square or Namco Bandai, Namco Bandai, just to name a few. So it's not fair to expect them to blow a huge budget creating realistic graphics and all that. But despite having that smaller studio expectation already set, I have to say that the graphics are very basic and on the poor side. I believe Falcom is using a proprietary graphics and physics engine, which unfortunately does a very, a poor job in presenting the game. You see, even though I played a quote-unquote modern Ys game before in the form of Memories of Silseta, the fact that I played that game on the small PlayStation Vita screen helped me a lot in terms of disguising the rough graphics on the small Vita screen. Well, that and the fact that you can't expect an older handheld like the Vita to push amazing graphics to begin with. But for this particular game, I was playing this on the PlayStation 4. Let me take that back. I played this actually on the PlayStation 5, via using my PlayStation 4 physical disc. So, I was playing this on the big screen, and you can definitely tell how rough the game is in terms of, in terms of details and basic textures for the most part. Not to mention the wonky physics and animations that end up looking very weird due to the lack of detail and obviously the lack of budget. It makes me wonder to an extent why Falcom doesn't just use a third-party graphics engine like Unreal or Unity. I understand you have to pay for the licensing and fees for the use of these types of engines, but I can't imagine producing your very own engine is cheap either. So, with that being said, the game does have an overall charming and interesting art direction and atmosphere. I really like the old school and European old town feel and vibe of the city of Balduc. The game has an overall feel of presentation that is on the gloomy and dark side, which is tied to that Balduc prison and the strange alternate dimension of the Grimwall Nox setting. Characters are well designed for the most part, but there are a couple of things that bother me, such as the over-sexualization of some of the female characters in the game. This is something that I feel older Ys games handled very tactfully in the past with just classy female character designs. But Ys 9 has some cringy female representations, both in your party members and also NPCs, that in my opinion are just simply not needed. Maybe I'm just turning into an old cranky man, but the more I see this, this in Japanese games, the more quote-unquote cringe I feel. So yeah, I think I'm officially turning old or something like that. Now, in terms of the soundtrack, this is an area where we all know what the likely results would be, meaning it has yet again a great sounding and rocking soundtrack, which is not a surprise. Straight up courtesy of the Falcom sound team. Now, admittedly, I did not find as many great tunes as I did in previous Ys games, for example, but nevertheless, the result is another solid soundtrack that can be listened to on most music streaming services such as YouTube Music and Spotify, so make sure you don't miss that out. The game features also very selective voice acting, probably for budget reasons, but I wish these selected voice acted sequences were better coordinated. There were cinematic sequences in the game where characters were voice acted, but then all of a sudden the voice acting stopped, like in the same dialogue. In other words, there was a lack of, consistency in the use of the limited voice acting in the game, which was a little bit distracting and just plain weird. Gameplay wise, Ys 9 is based on the modern Ys combat system, which features fast-paced action-based battles with the ability to change party members on the fly, and the ability to use special skills with shortcuts of button configurations using the right trigger button. This combat system was introduced, I believe, during Ys 7, and as I mentioned before, I only experienced it once before by playing Memories of Celceta on the PlayStation Vita. I like the system quite a bit since it provides fast-paced action sequences, all the while giving the player opportunities to mix combat up by switching party members on the fly and using different skills with different types of effects. Perhaps I don't enjoy this as much as I do the intermediate Ys games that I call that use the Ark of Napishtim engine, which are also combat based, but they have that charm with the over the top graphics that still remains for me my favorite gameplay style of Ys games. But nevertheless, this is a very solid modern representation of the action fast-paced combat of the Ys series. Now, you will need to perform all these actions that I mentioned, such as changing party members on the fly, using the skills. You will have to use these actions no matter what, in a very tactful way, since different enemies and bosses will require different types of attacks on your behalf to be effectively taken down. As far as defensive moves, you can perform evasive moves to activate things such as flash guards, which, if timed correctly, which will allow you, the player, to deal more damage to the enemies. You will encounter enemies during regular, settings of the city, such as underground, dungeons, and caves. But you will also face enemies in this alternate world type of setting known as the Grimwall Nox. These sections in the Nox serve as some sort of pseudo tower defense, in the sense that you have to defend these magical artifacts from monsters that are trying to destroy them. As you level up, you're able to purchase and upgrade defense weapons and traps that will become crucial in the later Nox waves segments towards the end of the game, where you will face waves with tons of super strong enemies. Besides having level up weapons and traps, the key is to also level up your characters and also level up the skills that you think are the best. In my case, I stuck primarily with the Raging Bull Monstrum, which is probably the strongest Monstrum in the game. She's kind of like a tank character, if you will, and her leveled up skills are insanely strong and, quite frankly, very overpowered. I played the game in the normal difficulty setting, and I feel like the difficulty was leaning on the easier side, but then again, I have to admit I completed about 95% of the side quests in the game, which means I level up a fair share of my characters, with experience points, and I was also able to receive a ton of money by completing side quests, which you can use in turn to buy better weapons and armors for your characters. Additionally, another benefit of completing side quests is that you can unlock important vendors and NPCs that are stationed at the Dandelion, which is some sort of underground bar, that acts as the hub of operations for Adol and the monstrums in the game. These vendors and NPCs offer really good items as well as the ability to upgrade armor and weapons in unique ways by finding different materials and scrolls from enemies and treasure chests that are scattered throughout the game. Aside from the action-based combat, you will also find yourself doing a fair share of exploration within the city for collectibles and treasure chests, containing different types of items. Exploration can become fun once you unlock all the party members, since you can use their monstrum powers to explore the city. For example, you can use the white cat's ability to run up walls, or the hawk's skills to glide for long distances to explore the city. And finally, another example is the Raging Bull's strength to destroy weak walls, which will allow you to uncover secret areas. I had a good amount of fun looking at the map and trying to reach places to collect things using the Monstrum's abilities. That was very fun. The game offers two different types of maps that you can use a detail map to look for items and things a little bit more in detail, and then you have this overall a map that it's very useful to I guess travel throughout the different areas that you have unlocked, which is pretty cool since this game allows you to fast travel very easily, and the game has short loading sequences, which, you know, it helps with, you know, with the fact that, you know, you can warp to different areas very easily throughout the game. There are also some platforming sections, if you want to call them, but, you know, overall the different settings in the game ranging from city atmospheres to forests to caves to dungeons are decent, but nothing great really. In between chapters, you also have these sort of flashback sequences where you control Adol, and they typically revolve around using some sort of stealth or avoiding traps within the prison fortress area. These sections become somewhat dull towards the end, towards the later chapters in the game, especially with the artificial increase in difficulty set by the developers for this particular stealth and traps segments, which is annoying since certain traps can one hit kill you, and quite frankly the way they are presented in the game is more of in a tedious and frustrating fashion rather than, say, a challenging but fun fashion. Well, overall I think that Ys 9 is a solid JRPG with an interesting story that takes a while to develop, unfortunately. The graphics are a bit of a letdown and perhaps the most, I guess, negative point of the game. But, you know, we have to rescue the positive and the pros on the game, and those are the soundtrack, you know, and the fast-paced, action-based combat system are definitely redeeming qualities for this title. I can't say that this ranks among my favorite Ys games, but it's definitely worth a playthrough, and I'm glad I was able to finish it. My next goals are to play the other quote-unquote modern Ys games, you know, being Ys 7 and Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, and perhaps replay the improved Memories of Celceta PS4 version as well. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later. Take it easy.